Hey there, and welcome to this week's video blog, Carnivore Diet Health Reset 30-Day Trial Part 1, the Introduction. This video is for you if you or your clients are struggling with chronic health issues that have not responded favorably to other interventions, particularly gut issues such as small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, mast cell issues, chronic pain and inflammation, chronic fatigue, urinary tract problems such as interstitial cystitis or vulvodynia, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and autoimmunity. It's also for those that are seeking weight loss solutions and/or to optimize one's physique by cutting fat and building lean muscle. In this video, I will be covering the following main points. First up, what exactly is the carnivore diet and the 3 levels of it to consider? Second, why I chose to implement this way of eating for myself currently. Third, the basic science behind this diet and why plant foods may not be your friend currently. And lastly, how my first week doing it went. I'm Jennifer Ellis Schutz, and you're watching the Wellness Code Academy channel, where I chat about innovative and cutting-edge ways to support health and wellness, which includes all things functional health, as well as mindset, the mind-body connection, energy-based testing and healing modalities, limbic system impairment, neural rewiring, habit change, and personal development from both the layperson and practitioner perspective. Be sure to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the red subscribe button below and hitting the bell next to it to be notified so you don't miss a week's featured video. As it might be obvious by its name, the carnivore diet is a high-fat, high-protein, and extremely low to no-carb diet that involves eliminating all foods from the plant kingdom and only consuming foods that come from animals such as meat, poultry, fish, animal fats, dairy, and eggs. And to ensure the highest of nutrient density and best possible outcomes, especially for those navigating complex chronic health issues, it's highly recommended to only consume the products of grass-fed, organic, and pasture-raised animals and wild-caught fish. This said, there are 3 primary levels of this way of eating, and they include the following. Level 1, which is the most liberal and where most people choose to begin, includes all meats, poultry and seafood, animal fats, eggs, water, salt, and dairy products such as ghee, butter, heavy cream, aged hard cheeses, and homemade yogurt and kefir from raw dairy, though some schools of thought discourage the yogurt and kefir because of the carb content. Level 2 is all meats, poultry, seafood, salt, and water only. And level 3, which is the most hardcore and most often reserved for those with serious inflammation levels and that need the ultimate elimination diet, or those that are die-hard body sculpting enthusiasts and consists of only beef, water, and salt. Beyond this, I've also heard of people implementing a level 4 of this diet by eating only raw beef, salt, and water, which is something that I personally would never choose to do. Okay, to begin, it's important for me to tell you that prior to choosing to implement a strict carnivore diet, I'd been doing low-carb, lower fruit, and veggie version of the GAPS diet for several years, with short periods, say about up to 2 weeks, of removing all plant foods, as well as doing short meat stock only fasts of like 2 to 3, sometimes 5 days. For those who are not familiar, GAP stands for Gut and Psychology or Physiology Syndrome. But to explain why I decided to finally buckle down and stick to a strict carnivore diet, I need to give you a bit of background information on myself. So to make a long story short, I'm a former high school Spanish teacher and head girls varsity soccer coach of nearly 2 decades. I fell deep down into the rabbit hole of chronic illness at age 26 at the onset of this career, with what ultimately turned out to be chronic Lyme and mold-related illness, though it took many years to figure this out. And I did many things over many years in both the conventional and functional realms in my quest to find my way back to wellness, to the tune of well over $300,000 out of pocket with little to no success. Ay caramba, right? In 2011, I had to undergo radical liver resection surgery to remove a massive infectious parasitic liver cyst that had gone undiagnosed for 14 years, according to the liver surgeon that took it out, which this is a whole other story in itself for another day. In 2012, after navigating the world of chronic illness while also trying to keep up with the unrelenting demands and crazy long hours that come with the teaching profession, I suffered a massive physical and nervous breakdown that commanded me to walk away to save my own life. At this juncture, I decided that I had to become my own best healer versus continuing to rely on others for answers. And so, I returned to school to study functional and mind-body medicine to learn the knowledge and acquire the skills that I needed. As you might know by now if you follow me, I now have my own private practice where I specialize in helping driven adults recover from chronic fatigue, gut conditions, and brain issues. Anyway, by 2015, I had made huge strides in my health and was doing really quite awesome. I'd say recovered by about 85 to sometimes 90%. But sadly, in March of that year, my husband and I got hit with a severe case of salmonella food poisoning from a local carry-out restaurant that knocked us both for a major loop. My husband recovered well. I never quite did, and my digestion was never the same after this. Then, in May of 2015, with my gut being super vulnerable, I contracted a C. diff intestinal infection while helping to take care of my mother, who had contracted it while in the hospital for a surgical procedure. This C. diff infection nearly killed me, and it took 9 months and many rounds of antibiotics to clear it. My digestion was even worse after this, and soon after I discovered that I had developed autoimmune antivinculin type recurring SIBO, which is like the worst kind you can have. This case of SIBO caused me to experience unrelenting gut pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and severe intolerance to fruits and vegetables daily. In an effort to heal this gut damage, I began a low plant-based version of the GAPS introductory diet and managed to heal greatly to a point where I felt well most of the time. Sadly, however, this past March 2020, I suffered another major gut insult when I fell acutely ill with both a respiratory and gut illness that I now believe was likely COVID-19, though I never did get tested to confirm. This acute illness set me back big time in my gut health and also triggered a positive rheumatoid arthritis factor, chronic tendinitis and bursitis in both of my arms, and a return of mast cell issues that I have not experienced since recovering from Lyme, mold issues, and the liver parasite. I'm also currently 100% intolerant of all plant foods. Anytime I eat them within days, sometimes even hours, I have a major exacerbation of symptoms, and many times I will experience hives and angioedema swelling all over my body. And this time around, the GAPS Intro Low Plant Diet is just not cutting it for me. And after much reluctance, contemplation, and research, I have come to the conclusion that I need to do a strict carnivore diet to heal my gut and get back to where I was. As I look back, the numerous gut insults I've endured over the years in tandem with significant antibiotic use and years of eating a sad diet before I knew what I know now about nutrition have definitely wreaked havoc on my microbiome, killing off much, if not most, of my beneficial indigenous flora. When I first began the carnivore diet, I intended to do level 3, which is just beef, water, and salt, for this 30-day experiment. But after 3 days, my body told me it needed more than this. And so now I'm somewhere between level 1 and 2, eating all meats, seafood, egg yolks, ghee, butter, salt, and water. Once I get rid of this inflammation in my body and get myself back to a good place with the carnivore diet, my plan is to head to Mexico for intensive fecal microbiota transplant therapy to restore the indigenous gut flora that I have lost as a result of all these gut insults over the years. My hope is that by ultimately healing my gut, I will be able to add some plant foods back into my diet. No offense to the carnivore diehards out there, but for me, a life of eating only plant products does not seem appealing, nor the best option for a way of life, at least not for now. And I definitely want more variety in my diet. And while I don't advocate for any one way of eating for any one person, my philosophy on the healthiest way of eating, once the gut is in good shape, is basically a real food diet that includes as much diversity of fruits and vegetables as one can handle, while still maintaining optimal health. But this is just my opinion. Anyway, this is my story in a nutshell and the reasons behind why I'm choosing this way of eating. I hope that it offered some pearls of wisdom and inspiration to somebody out there. The grand majority of us are raised with the belief that a diet high in fruits and vegetables and lower in animal fats and proteins is the best for optimal health, right? Much of this belief system is purported by the Western medical paradigm. While I will not argue that fruits and vegetables do contain a wide array of health-supporting nutrients that many people seem to do really well with, and that vegan and vegetarian diets indeed have their place in helping to reverse poor health states, excuse me, especially cancer. That said, I also know that more and more people are developing intolerances to them, plant foods that is, and these intolerances are playing a significant role in a wide array of inflammatory conditions, such as the ones I mentioned at the beginning of this video. I also know, or shall I say, I have come to believe, based on years of research and personal experimentation, that sustainably raised animal foods are much more health supportive than most of us have ever been led to believe, and that they are indeed necessary for optimal health and the reversal of poor health states for many people. In fact, there are populations in human history that lived and continue to live optimally on primarily animal-based diets, yet there are no populations that live on a plant-based only diet. So what's the issue with plant foods? Why can they cause so many problems for so many people? Why can so many people live optimally without them, yet many people cannot live optimally without animal foods? Well, for the sake of keeping this video to a reasonable length, I'm going to keep this explanation rather basic as I present you with 4 primary reasons. Reason number 1, plants, just like we do, want to survive. And to help them survive, they have a sophisticated defense mechanism to keep predators, such as animals and us humans, from eating them. This defense system includes compounds that are quite toxic to our systems, such as lectins, phytic acids, oxalates, and salicylates. These compounds are considered anti-nutrients to us. Our systems are not well equipped to handle them, and so they can build up in our bodies and cause all sorts of inflammatory issues that contribute to disease, chronic disease, that is. This is especially true of those with chronic health issues whose detoxification and digestive systems are more compromised than that of a healthy person. Reason number 2, carbohydrates, which are the basis of plant-based foods, are not essential for human health, yet protein and fat are. In fact, more and more people these days are becoming carbohydrate intolerant, even sometimes to super healthy carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, leading to blood sugar, insulin, and weight loss resistance issues, which these are the foundations for metabolic syndrome. Reason number 3, the human digestive system is just not designed to handle the fiber in plant foods that well. Yes, a healthy, well-functioning digestive system with a high diversity of beneficial gut bugs is more able to handle the fiber in plant foods. But all in all, our digestive tracts are more suited for animal foods. And reason number 4, due to how toxic our world, our food supply, and our bodies have become as a result of toxic agents such as glyphosate, in tandem with the standard American diet, unsupportive lifestyle habits, unprecedented levels of stress, and the overuse of prescription drugs, more people than not have dysbiotic and inflamed digestive systems. When you put plant foods into a gut that has more bad bugs than good ones, all you're doing is feeding the bad bugs, which allows them to produce more toxins that leach across a leaky intestinal barrier into the bloodstream and trigger systemic inflammation. When this happens, continued ingestion of the offending plant foods, which for some could be all plant foods, will only lead to more and more inflammation and prevent healing from happening. Plant foods are best for a healthy gut that has more good gut bugs than bad ones. This is where a carnivore diet comes in as the ultimate elimination therapeutic healing diet. A carnivore diet eliminates all of the offending compounds that plants contain, while supplying the body with the nutrient-dense nutrition it needs to heal at the cellular level. Once a certain degree of healing has been achieved, one can slowly begin reintroducing plant foods to see which ones are conducive to continued healing and which ones are not. And that is the basic science behind the carnivore diet. So as I stated previously, when I began this diet, I completely intended on doing level 3, beef, salt, and water only. But after the third day, I decided somewhere between level 1 and 2 was a better option for me. Tomorrow will be 1 week of eating only grass-fed and pasture-raised meats and poultry, wild-caught salmon, egg yolks, butter, ghee, and water. Seeing that I had been following a low-carb and low plant-based GAPS diet for several years and have done several short bouts of carnivore, this transition was not horrible, but it's also not been easy. The first 5 days, I was super hungry and craving carbs like crazy. I also experienced profound fatigue, stomach upset, a bit of diarrhea, slight headaches, lower mood, and waking up at around 1:30 a.m. in the morning and not being able to fall back asleep for 1 to 2 hours. Now, upheavals like this are completely to be expected when one goes super low to no carb, as the body is going through significant adaptations. And I will be talking much more in detail about these adaptations in part 2 of this series. On the 6th day, however, which is today, many of these symptoms have greatly lifted. Though I'm still a bit fatigued, I am no longer craving carbs. In fact, I feel zero hunger. Right now, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and all I've had today is mineral water and a cup of chicken meat stock with 3 raw egg yolks stirred into it. For dinner, I only plan on having like half a pound of ground beef and some ghee stirred into it, and that will be all I eat today. I have not yet experienced the reduction in my tendinitis issues in my arms, but my gut feels stable, and I am 100% confident that in time, the inflammation causing this tendinitis and elevated RA factor will go to the wayside. And that's a wrap for today's video. Coming up next time in part 2, I will be giving further updates as well as talking more about what challenges to expect when implementing this way of eating, as well as tips for being successful with it. Until then, be well and be empowered.